Good morning. Brought you to the class today, and we're going to review those 6 areas, and they're on the board, which we've now whittled down to 5 because we put mind, thoughts, and feelings together. So 5 areas of who we are. Dallas Willard, I quoted Dallas Willard as saying that a weakness in one area tends to drag down the whole. Think about that for a minute. Thoughts. You could have conflicts in your thoughts, false ideas that come from our culture like image is everything, or you only go around once in life, grab all the gusto that you can, or you're worth it, and pretty soon if you live by those you become a practical atheist. You could also have feelings and desires that conflict with what you should do because of some of those thoughts or something else. And that you see Apostle Paul struggling with that in Romans 7. Or just all the different choices and how you those choices running into each other, or conflicts in social relations, so that maybe you're a little bit like me, of an approval addict, and that drives your behavior, or just bodily behaviors themselves, habits that need changing, of habits of the tongue, of eating, pleasure seeking, or whatever. Whichever area that you found when we told you to look at each of these areas in scriptures that address them that might be a weakness, what ends up happening is by default the body ends up being on top, because whatever drives those behaviors besides God, it ultimately becomes a bodily habit that you can't beat without God. And so you can see the order. The body then begins calling the shots and is controlling the soul. The soul is soul life is following the body, and all your thoughts, all your feelings are lining up with that. But God wants it to be this other way, where God is the one who is your heart is reaching out to God for help to put all these other things in the right order, so that your soul is aligned. Today, so I want us to look at the soul for a minute. That's the part of us that kind of integrates all of these and makes them work together. It is, as someone said, the inner stream of your life. Psalm 63 and Psalm 42 kind of give us that picture. I want you to think of the opposite. Jesus said, "What does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his own soul?" Does that bring anybody to mind? One of the people Jesus brought to mind as an illustration was the rich farmer who decided he was just going to build bigger barns and store it all up and live for and by the material things of this life. That didn't work out too well for him when he had to face God the same day. So the opposite of that is to have a well-ordered life, and your soul is the one who can guide that. Let me give you some questions that Jan Johnson gives that are based basically on different things that people do with their souls in the Psalms. 5 questions that I want you to ask yourself today. First of all, what state is your soul in? Is it in a state of anguish? Is it in a state of longing for, say, God's justice? Or is it at rest? That is the state God wants your soul to be at. What does your soul repeatedly pant for, as it says in Psalm 42 and 63? Thirst for, wait for, rail, or does it rail against God? What's your soul constantly, repeatedly doing? Number 3, what question would you like to ask your soul? A lot of times the psalmists ask themselves, "Why are you downcast, O my soul? My soul? Why are you so distracted?" What question do you need to ask your soul in terms of the direction of your life? What would you say to? What would you like to say to your soul? For instance, in the case above, the psalmist says, "Hope in God," or would you like to tell your soul, "Find rest in God"? And finally, what would you like God to say to your soul? There's one psalm where the psalmist asks God to say to his soul, "I am your salvation." It might be good for you to practice speaking to your soul this week and allowing God to speak to your soul and bring it to a state of rest in Him. He can take care of the rest. Thanks.